This Ford Ranger keeps me out of debt. I'm sure you've heard the running joke about Ford Rangers. I love the joke. I think it's pretty awesome, actually. It gives us some recognition. This truck, I would rather put money into this truck than buy any new truck out there. I don't want a car payment. I don't want a truck payment. So when you hear people say stuff like, this car is nickel and diming me, you know what? I'd rather spend a couple nickels and dimes. So if you take anything away from this video, it's that you don't need a brand new vehicle. You don't. You really don't. The down payment that you put on a brand new vehicle will get you a vehicle that probably runs, drives, is inspected or inspectable, and you're still going to be saving money. So I've had a vibration in this vehicle for a little while. It's actually turns out to be fairly simple. It's actually the front drive shaft. This is the drive shaft out of my '05 Grand Cherokee. And these rzeppa joints are just crap. But this is what's bad in my Ranger. I don't know if it's the same size because this one is brand new. I did wind up replacing this entire shaft because after I realized this was bad, I discovered this one was bad. And these are non-serviceable in the WK. They are fortunately serviceable in the Ford Ranger. So I wound up going with Tom Woods on my Jeep, and I'm going to do the DIY on my truck. I'm going to show you how that goes. So I'm just going to pop this thing out of here. She may leak a little bit of oil, but look at that transmission pan. Metal. Look at that oil pan. Metal. So the front U-joint bolts are T27 Torx bolts. Be sure to put the transfer case into 4 high and chock your rear wheels. Bolts back here at the transfer case are 8 mil. I'm just going to crack them all loose, and then I'll probably put the transfer case back in 2 high so that I can spin the shaft to get these off. Just like that, she's out. Now with the front drive shaft out of the vehicle, you can hear what's going on in there. I'd say it's pretty well spent. Nothing for grease inside. There we go. Man, that thing's dry as a bone. Grease? What grease? I wonder if this is the original. If this is the original drive shaft, 338,000 miles. That's pretty good. And this should slide off of here. Kept it for longer, but that having a Zerk fitting would have been nice on the other end of this somehow. Getting ahead of myself. Oh wow, they do give you a gasket on this one. Grease. Ooh, new bolts. I like that. Another gasket there. I gotta put that on first. Obviously you want to be careful to not cut the boot. I'm just trying to get it around that lip. Here's what's called a banding clamp tool, and I'm using this for these special clamps that go on CV boots and also on drive shafts. Once the end of the band is threaded through the tool properly, you then wind it up and it tightens down at the very end where it clamps and pulls the slack out, and it'll actually squish the boot down pretty good, and that's what you want. And you keep tightening it until you just about can't tighten it anymore, and then you fold it forward a little bit and it will automatically cut. And you see that rod right there off the tool that's leaning over the drive shaft. That actually is a cutting tool, and once it's pushed over, it automatically cuts through that band. You'll see that here in a second. And now that it's cut, you fold it over, and there's two tabs on either side that get crimped down, and that holds it from coming apart. And if you want to be a little extra OCD, you just fold the other piece of that band backwards. Kind of hard to explain. If you've ever done one, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, when you go to do one, you will know what I'm talking about. Like that. Instead of going any further on that end, I switched over to doing the U-joint on the other end, because the rzeppa joint, you have to pack it full of grease, and that could turn into a giant mess. So I opted to just start on the other side and get this side taken care of before wrapping up the other end. This was no fun task, taking out the U-joint. It was in there pretty good. Really didn't want to beat on it too much, but you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes to get things apart, and this is what it took. These new joints can be pretty tricky when you're putting them in, because you have to take the caps off, and they're full of the needles, which are the actual bearings inside. It's a needle bearing, and you don't want to lose those. You also don't want to get dirt and junk in there right away either, because then you're just going to ruin the joint. So it's best to take your time, go slow, and also pay attention to which way that Zerk fitting goes, because I went to put it in and discovered that I had to take the U-joint back apart and flip it, because the Zerk fitting was actually hitting the yoke on the differential. So be aware of that when you're doing these, and make sure you put that the right way. With the bench vise, it's pretty easy to push these caps onto the end of the shaft, but it's also pretty easy to screw that up. So you just want to make sure you go slow, take your time, and make sure they line up correctly as you're squeezing it together. Once it's mostly pressed in and you have it out of the vise, just make sure that everything moves properly before you go and tap them all the way together. You're going to push these down as far as they go, and then you're going to insert your circlips, and that's what holds them in on either side on this. And with both C-clips in place, you want to just take a screwdriver or something, make sure they're actually all the way seated into the ring inside of the shaft itself, because you definitely don't want those coming apart. Now I can get back to doing the other side, and you basically put a little bit of grease in there before you put the joint onto the shaft itself. Don't forget to put your gaskets in, because you'll have to pull that joint back off if you don't do the gasket first. And then just tap that joint onto the shaft and put your C-clip on the end of the shaft. That'll hold that rzeppa joint right where it needs to be. Okay, so be sure when you're putting your U-joint in that your Zerk fitting faces the shaft. I had it the other way, I just had to redo it because it was hitting up here at the yoke. Make sure you put that on the right direction the first time. I also want to throw some blue Loctite on there, on all these bolts, to be honest, because they felt pretty loose. This is an M6, or I'm sorry, H6. Last but not least, don't forget to grease your U-joints. I like to use the black stuff with the moly in it, molybdenum. Stuff's great for keeping water out.